I call this meeting of the North Adams City Council to order for July 10th. This meeting is being recorded. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Bona.
Here.
Ludington.
Here.
Owen.
Here.
Harpen.
Here.
Hopkins.
Here.
Forrest.
Here.
Lamb.
Here.
Moran.
Here.
Wilkinson.
Here.
M9 present.
And everyone present. Please stand for a moment of silence. Tonight we will remember Arlen Al Nelson, Community Activist, Director of Northern Berkshire United Way, Board Member and Treasurer of the Northern Berkshire Community Coalition, co-founder of both the Northern Berkshire Faith Action Initiative and the Friendship Food Pantry. And the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the minutes for from July 10th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? It's passed. Paper number 11,654, communication from Councilor Buddington regarding a plastic bag and styrofoam ban. This was in City Council April 24th, 2018. It was voted to postpone to the meeting of July 24th, 2018. Just a moment, I don't know if we have a motion, or Councilor Buddington, do you have any reports at this time you'd like to extend on?
Well, I should summarize the report from the General Government Committee, which I believe all councilors have from several weeks back. In short, the General Government Committee is recommending that the council take no action at this time on a ban on single-use plastic bags, but instead focus on what the city can do internally to reduce our own usage and also do some outreach to the community. I would encourage other members of the committee to flesh this out if there are other things that you think need to be mentioned here. There is an effort at the state level to ban single-use plastic bags from retail establishments. It's not clear to me. I think that's still uncertain whether that will pass this year. That proposed legislation does not have any exemptions or does not allow any disposable bags at all, not even recyclable ones. And I think the general feeling of the committee was that it's a bit of a culture shock, I think, for people who are used to these disposable bags, and we want a little more run-up to make the transition easier. And also, this city would have more moral standing to impose a change like this if we were doing more internally to reduce our own plastic usage.
So is there currently a motion on the table? Is it the motion to file?
Well, given that the committee did not bring anything in ordinance form to the council, there's not much else that I think that the council can do at this point, so I would make that motion.
So we have a motion to file to get into further discussion.
Second.
Second. Okay, Councilor Hopkins. And discussion. Harpen and Hopkins.
Yeah, I just want to say, no, I think that's a good idea to educate the public and not just, throw something out there that they don't really understand but have to abide by. So actually educating the public on that would be great. Also, me personally, I think, I would support a plastic bag ban primarily for the larger stores. Anything, if we could maybe write something up, an ordinance over 40,000 square feet, because I believe those are the stores that actually, are producing plastic bags and distributing to customers more than, smaller stores. So that's how I feel about it.
Councilor Hopkins.
I just want to say, for those who are concerned about the issue at large, it's not dead by any means. This doesn't put it to bed. It doesn't say we're not ever going to do anything. There is state legislation drafted. It probably is not going to come up in the current legislative year, but likely next year, that might apply these same kinds of bans statewide so that there's a standard statewide rather than having, I think, is it 30, 40, 60 communities in the state now do this at varying levels. I think the committee felt that it was important to, in a sense, lead by example and do more community education. And Councilor Cohen, if she wishes to speak to it, did quite a bit of legwork doing a couple of surveys of businesses and the community.
Yes, Councilor Cohen.
Yeah, so just to brief everybody on, the committee's work, we did have 2 surveys that went out, one to consumers and one to the businesses in the area, and it was a pretty 50-50 split on what the feelings for the ban would have been. So it was a decision that the committee made just to continue the education, really try to get the reduce, reuse, recycle motto out there, and to try to, really put a timeline on this and not make it something mandatory right away, because I think that there definitely was some opposition there at the time that we took into consideration. So I'd love to see this come back at some point. I don't know how long we have to wait, but we will work. I know as a city councilor in the area and just somebody who lives here that I want to work at making sure that the big box stores know that this is the direction that North Adams will be moving in the future.
Councilor Hopkins.
And just a detail from the survey, the vast majority of people say when they do get reusable or single-use bags, they use them at least once more for something else.
Thank you. Councilor Lamb.
I'm just curious to the committee, you mentioned the education piece. Was there any kind of like tangible actions that were established through the committee conversation around what that looks like? Because I know one concern that we've had around topics such as domestic violence is the city taking on too much of that role in terms of the education or the application of any direct strategy. So I'm curious if there were partners in the room or if there was any strategy around that component of it.
Councilor Buddington.
I'd say I am a bit uncomfortable with this part of the decision because the things that need to be done are moving beyond what the council's purview, and so it feels a little bit like we're dodging. But we did have input from a woman involved in making reusable bags down in Adams. A lot of the plastic reduction that could be done is in the school system, which obviously we don't have direct authority over. Yeah, I think that's it.
Councilor Cohen.
Yeah, and I think because we did look at the 2020 vision and where the city wants to move, I think that in conversation with the mayor, this is something that is in the back of everybody's mind in the city. So I don't think it's going to be something that they're going to take on their own. We're hoping to get more organizations in the city involved as well to, not only educate, but possibly help hand out the bags, the reusable bags, and to make sure people have access to the things that they need to make this successful as well.
Any other councilors? Discussion from the public? Yes, name and address for the record, please.
Okay, Robert Smith, 140 Pleasant Street, North Adams. My thought is I don't think the city should take any action if you realize the state down the road is going to mandate this throughout the entire state of Massachusetts. Why even get involved with it? Why don't we just wait to see what the state's going to do? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
In the back first.
Robert Cardamino, 173 East Quincy Street. There are already 5 states in this United States that have recycling programs. And in this article I got from Newsweek magazine, the international community is in the process of doing something about recycling and reclaiming plastic that's in the ocean. And I would like to suggest that this council and the committee look into a recycling ordinance in North Adams. Let's be on the forefront of recycling, not following what some other community is doing. Let's have North Adams do it first and have the other communities look to us. And I'm going to be lobbying the state also for recycling, because that's the trend. Because there's no way that you can ban plastic. It's everywhere. We got to recycle it, you know, and it's building up by the, if I had time, I could give you some data on that, you know. These oceans are just loaded with plastic, not only floating, but it's sinking to the bottom also. But there's a couple of entrepreneurs that have plans for reclaiming that plastic. So perhaps that would be a good way to go, is see if we can start it in North Adams to recycle. On my vacation, I was in Disney World. They recycle plastic in there. They got containers everywhere. We could do that in North Adams. We could make the contractors that are picking up the garbage have plastic, pick up plastic and garbage. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I am happy to hear that you're reconsidering.
Thank you. Name and address for the record, please.
Joseph Smith, 131 Horrigan Road in Clarksburg, and I own a home in North Adams as well. The only thing I would mention with this is, well, a couple of things. One is that I hope that now the natural course of action will be to have a dialogue with the administrative side of the city to see what they actually feel they can reduce. I know that you specifically have brought up utensils, for instance, in the schools. I don't know that education of the public is really so important. I think that's pretty out there. But I think you should have the dialogue with the administration and see what they're willing to do. But the other thing you really should consider as well is, again, the Paris Accord. You've signed on as a legislative body about that. What you really have control of is the plastic bags. So while on one hand you can talk to the administration about what they're willing to do, you really shouldn't probably push along what you can control, which is the plastic bags. So I think you really should consider that matter a bit. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other discussion from the audience? Yes.
Yes, Brian Sapienza, 113 Pleasant Street. First of all, I would like to see that the city kind of stay away from this issue for the time being. I don't think our businesses need any more ordinances or laws to restrict how they conduct business. And I know it may not hurt Walmart or Big Y or any of the larger stores, but the smaller stores that do use plastic bags instead of paper would see a financial burden, I believe. Also, I think we need to focus on re-education of how to treat these bags once they're used. A lot of people rely on the plastic bags to bring their groceries home because they do not have vehicles. And obviously, with the weather we had yesterday, a plastic bag or a paper bag would have the lifespan of, 2 minutes at most. I mean, you'd get your groceries home and the bags would be disintegrated. And, you see a lot of people, and especially where I work up on West Main Street, you see a lot of people carrying these bags either open-handedly or in some type of a cart, and they're exposed to the elements. So I think we got to consider that too. But I think we need to encourage people to recycle and reuse. And as Councilor Bona mentioned a few weeks ago when we were discussing this, every New England home has one of those sausages. You put the plastic bags in the top and you pull them out in the bottom. Plastic bags, you use everything for carrying wet bathing suits, or if you have wet clothes, they're great to keep that contained, moisture contained, either in or out. And I think that a lot of people, and especially here in North Adams, do reuse the bags at least 2 or 3 times before they end up in the waste stream.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak on this subject? Councilors? Yes, Councilor
Just to
Cohen.
be clear, the General Government Committee was not speaking about having, the paper in replace of the plastic as well. We understand that paper bags have their own environmental concerns. So that was never on the table that we would replace one with the other. That's come up a lot, and I just wanted to make sure that misconception was cleared up. We were looking to really kind of get people moving towards using the reusable bags, which in my opinion, and I know, I've talked to many elderly as well, that they prefer them because they can put more in them. So there are some misconceptions out there, so please take the time to read the minutes as well as to what we were proposing.
Thank you. Any other counselors? Right now, we have a motion to file, and this is, I guess, all in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion's filed. Paper number 11,676, a petition submitted by F. Sidney Smithers requesting to amend the North Adams zoning map to be rezoned a CC-1. Public hearing was held July 9th. Without objection, file the communication and move on to the paper. Paper number 11,676-1, communication from the Planning Board recommended an amendment to the City of North Adams zoning map. Without objection, file the communication and move on to the ordinance. Paper number 10,674-6, an ordinance amending the revised zoning map of the City of North Adams from an R2-2, I-1, and I-2 to a CC-1. We need a motion to pass to a second reading and publish as required by law.
Move to approve.
And second?
Okay, and discussion. Yes, Councilor Buddington?
I'd like to speak briefly in opposition to this. I had submitted a communication that I believe was read at the public hearing. Thank you, Councilor Moran. I understand you got that in for me. My main concern is that a CC zone is too permissive, and that a CA zone would be more appropriate for what is basically a neighborhood. CC1 allows several things, a bunch of things that a CA1 would not. For instance, storage of building materials, public garages or auto repairs, shopping centers, parking structures, and to be sure, it also, CC1 is necessary for hotels and motels. But I would feel much more comfortable if we were to rezone the whole, say, the south side of Mass Ave through Blackenton as all CA1 zone, to make it obvious that this is not to privilege just that one property, the church property, but to allow for the possibility of small, light commercial, light retail in that area. Right now, also the area between Mass Ave and the river is some very attractive green space, and changing this all to a CC1 zone would open that up for a whole lot of development. And I recognize that the petitioners are not suggesting such extreme development, but as the city council changing the zoning law, we are setting the rules for probably decades down the road, and our concern should not be what the petitioners are planning to do, but what is going to be allowed in this zone. My other concern, sort of a procedural one, is I haven't heard from abutters, and I would like to know whether they have had a chance to weigh in on this and be notified. I do recognize that currently a lot of this land is zoned industrial, which is extremely unrestrictive, so it's not as though we're going from residential to commercial in most cases.
Thank you. Councilor Wilkinson?
Yes, I just want to make the point that the parcel that he's talking about that was where the old wastewater treatment plant was. It is definitely green space. It is virtually undevelopable, even though whatever the zoning may be. You have a railroad track that runs through the middle of it with only one place that you can cross. A senior citizen home was projected there years ago and decided no, they didn't want to do that because if the train was stalled in the track, the ambulance couldn't get through, so that got shot down. Because of the crossing of the railroad there, it's virtually impossible to actually develop commercially. So, I mean, it's really not a concern, even if it is a CC1 zone, because it's economically undevelopable.
Thank you. Other counselors, Counselor Hopkins.
Abutters were notified of the joint public hearing with the City Council and the Planning Board. I have been pushing this out to people to let them know we were meeting tonight. I want to guess that there might be a couple here, but I've heard from others and heard a couple of their concerns.
Thank you.
Other counselors? Counselor Harpin, then Counselor LaForest.
Yeah, I called some of the neighbors, either within that area or within, the stretch of that area somewhere in the neighborhood. And I spoke to a few people down there, and their only concern with me was the parking. If there was going to be a parking issue on Mass Ave, they all seemed to be for the development. The people that I spoke to. But that was their main concern, was the development, and also just being careful of the river and making sure that they had all the permits and that type of thing. And I did make some phone calls today, and, the permits are all where they need to be, and, everybody was notified. So I feel, pretty comfortable just based on the conversations that I've had with the neighborhood that they're comfortable with this, but they are concerned about the parking. So maybe down the road that is something, we can address, is some parking.
Counselor LaForest.
So I just want to echo what Councilor Harpin has said. I have been in contact with several of the neighbors who are directly affected on Mass Avenue, and I'm also in a butter technically on Versailles Avenue in Greylock. And I haven't heard anyone who's vehemently opposed to the project. The only consideration was the concern for parking at the restaurant. So yes, the abutters certainly were notified, and there has been opportunity for them to voice their concerns publicly, but there hasn't been much, participation from the abutters in the public hearing. I don't know, again, if anyone's here tonight to speak to this, but there is a concern, of course, as raised by Councilor Buddington about the longevity of the ordinance change. But I think, the neighbors that I've talked to from the Mass Ave, from the Blackington neighborhood, and myself also, have been very much in favor of the project. They had a great presentation at the joint public hearing. And I think it's a reasonable and respectful use of the available property.
Any other counselors? I've heard, other than on post online, I've seen some people expressing some concern. I haven't heard anyone, opposing it strongly, just, again, concern. The church parking, I guess, I look at is, at one time it was a church, and it was full of parishioners. And when church was going on, there would have been a lot of cars, and my guess probably more than any time the restaurant might be full, because if you figure all the pews were packed up at one time, there would have been a lot. And I remember that street, it would get full, but it's a restaurant, and there would be traffic coming in and out throughout the day. But that's something that I think we have to learn with the community. We have buildings like this that can be used for this, and the days they were built, the parking wasn't there. So anyone from the public that wants to speak on this? Yes, Mr. Smithers.
Mr. President and members of the City Council, I'm Sid Smithers. I'm an attorney with Kane, Hibbert, and Myers in Pittsfield, and we represent Tourists Hotel. We are the petitioner for this rezoning. I have with me Eric Kearns, and we also have the slideshow that we put on at the joint public hearing if anybody wants to see it again. Some of you weren't able to make it. We can put it on if you would like. Thinking that might go over long, I instead handed out to each of you a map showing the area to be rezoned, the portion that is already zoned CC1, and we would propose to move that zone to expand westerly to Ashton Avenue to include the properties owned by tourists and its affiliates. The purpose of the CC1 zone is principally because we can expand an existing zone and not have to introduce a new zone, and thereby avoid some potential. I think it's very small because the lot's big, the area being rezoned is big, but there's some potential for a claim of spot zoning. Indeed, the planning board chairman voted that he thought it was spot zoning. We'd be happy to put on the slideshow for you. I want to introduce Eric Kearns to make a couple of remarks. I did prepare a memorandum and send it to each of you by way of the city clerk last night. I hope you've had a chance to read it. It makes the arguments I made at the planning board, but I think they're worthy of being made a second time. This is not an effort to do an end run or to avoid compliance with every particular of the North Adams zoning ordinance, and in particular, the present requirements that you have before you have a new tenant, a new occupant, before you do any construction, you have to get a planning board special permit site plan review. And whether it's going to be a shopping center or a nursing home or whatever it is, there's going to be review of the parking and the site plan. That's part of what your ordinance already requires. We're going to have to go through that process for whatever we want to do. One final note. The church is proposed to be converted to Loom, a restaurant. But it is proposed to build parking, off-street parking behind it. And there's going to be a garden behind it, and we hope an orchard, and we hope there are going to be real farm-to-table cuisine served there. This is not an ominous development for the city of North Adams, I suggest. I think it's a great thing for the city. Eric?
Thanks, Sid. Eric Kearns, 1413 Massachusetts Avenue. I live in this neighborhood, too, and have for quite a long time. Thank you for letting us up here today. I think that the 2 points that I'd like to, one, Councilor Wilkinson pointed out very well that that large piece of property in the center that historically referred to as Blackenton Island, primarily because we discovered that for much of its life it was completely surrounded by water due to some industrial waterways that fed the Blackenton Mill, and there was quite a large mill pond behind all those houses on the south side of Main Street. And that there were, I believe, I can't remember, Mayor former Mayor Alkenbrett would know, there were, I think, 3 or 4 RFPs done for that city wastewater treatment plant property over the past 2 decades, and no feasible plan came out of it. There was, I think, in addition to the one that you'd mentioned, there was like a self-storage units.
There was there was self-storage units, there was a senior center.
So a solar field plan that I've seen.
Solar field, as well as there was a national firm that wanted to put in fiber optic cable. That was going to be a transfer station that was going to be developed there. And for the same reason of the one crossing of the railroad, there was no access. There was a proposal to put a bridge across the river, and that determined to be economically unfeasible. So there's a lot of people that have taken a shot at it, and nobody's been able to come up with an idea that could work.
Well, and we like the fact that our idea is something that's not a shopping center. The fact that it is about preserving it as green space, that the way that we've found something, the fact that it has no other developable purpose is actually the great boon of it for our project. And then the other thing that I wanted to address was about the things you mentioned about parking. We, as part of the purchase that we made from the city, we do own that former ball field property behind the church. That will be developed into some parking as well as this kitchen farm. And then we will want to be able to utilize the street parking. There's probably, if you count both sides of the street, there's 200 yards of street parking there that's with wide shoulders that was created for that space when it was a church. And then also, just to remind everyone that for the past decade, that building has, it was deconsecrated by the church in 2007 and was sold to a private owner, and it has served several commercial purposes then. And those of you who, those like me who live in the neighborhood and people who drive by frequently, most recently for the past couple of years, it's been Gemini Gymnastics with cars up and down the street all the time. So I think we don't want to, part of our idea about putting the restaurant in that space is really this attempt to re-enliven Blackington Village in a way that it was historically. Up until I had a great conversation with John Tassone, who lives right next door to the property, who's lived in that house since 1963, I think. And he was telling me stories about Heisler's Market, which was up where the old Blackington General Store was, even up through the 80s. There was like a little TV repair and radio repair store there on the corner of the access road to the wastewater treatment plant. That there, at the time, there was a school, there was a post office, there were several stores, there was a doctor who had visiting hours. It was a little village in and of itself and had this kind of incredible life to it because of that commerce. And in earlier this year, we hosted a wonderful neighborhood kind of history meetup with on a snowy night, and amazingly like 60 people from the neighborhood showed up, and we sat and talked for several hours about everybody telling their stories about growing up in Blackington and those who are new to the community about the research that we've done. And there seemed to be a real latent yearning that I noticed in that meeting of people who expressed a desire to see that kind of life return to the village again and not have it be just forced into being a bedroom community for downtown.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm going to put the question out there. So they mentioned they have the presentation if councilors feel the need for it. And I don't know if there's anyone in the audience who is from that neighborhood who did not see it at the planning board, who would prefer to see it or wish to see it. Please speak up. Myself, I don't think we need to re-see it. As we, the planning board has already, talked about this, and we really have the ordinance more in front of us. But if there's counselors who feel otherwise, or if there are members in the audience who feel otherwise, who would prefer to see it, we can obviously show it if needed. Any other counselors at this time that need to speak? Counselor Buddington.
I feel I don't need to see the presentation because I have no objections to these development plans. I think it's fine. But for instance, it does not allow to re-enliven Blackington. It doesn't allow for, say, a coffee shop down the street because the rest of those properties we're going to leave them under this plan as residential. And so that's a while ago, I discovered something, I think it's called a build-out analysis, which is done at the state government level, which shows you the maximum development allowable under current law. And that's sort of what's going through my mind when I look at this. I'm not picturing what Mr. Kearns and company are going to develop, because what they're doing seems quite gentle and like it will preserve the character wonderfully. But I'm imagining the maximum build-out as permitted by zoning and as permitted by this proposed zoning. And that's why I feel so strongly that this should be developed as light commercial, not heavy commercial.
Okay, thank you. Anyone from the audience? And any counselors? We have a motion to pass to a second reading and publish as required by law. All in favor?
Aye.
And oppose?
Nay.
One opposition. Motion passes. Thank you. Paper number 11,684, Mayor's Communication number 46, recommending the appointment of Brian Sapienza to the North Adams Public Arts Commission for a term to expire May 1st, 2019, to fill the unexpired term of Nancy Zeider. Motion to confirm this appointment.
Motion to confirm.
Second.
Second. And discussion. Do we know this guy? Yes, Mr. Kearns. Oh, sorry. Mayor, anything?
I would just echo what you said. This is the position that Nancy Zeider filled. Mr. Sapienza has indicated that he's willing to fill out her unexpired term. The ordinance for the Public Arts Commission includes 2 members from the community at large. So that's the position that Mr. Sapienza would fill. Mr. Blackmare, who's here, fills the other position in that capacity.
Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion from councilors? Councilor Buddington?
I'd just like to say that from my point of view, the fact that Mr. Sapienza has been so involved in bringing well thought out commentary to the council speaks well for his willingness to do research and be prepared. So I'm enthusiastically supporting him.
Any other counselors? I congratulate you. If you, looks like you should get appointed, but one thing I like is that people think that because it's an art commission, that everyone on it should be an artist, or, so it's good. We'll have someone with some technical engineering experience if that's needed. So
How do you know
thank
he's not an artist?
What's that?
How do you know he's not an artist?
I think his aunt was, right? Or sister? Sister? Aunt, yes. So there's art in his family and his kids, yes. So, we have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Paper number 11,685, Mayor's Communication number 47, recommending the appointment of Derek Parker to the North Adams Public Arts Commission for a term to expire May 1st, 2023. Motion to confirm the appointment.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. Anything, Mayor?
So this would be a full term to replace an appointment for someone who termed out. I have met with Mr. Parker. I'm very impressed by his experience as both a sculptor and an arts educator, and I think he will bring good insight to the work of the commission as well.
Thank you. Any counselors? Audience? Not hearing any. This is all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Paper number 11,686, Mayor's Communication number 48, relative to the approval of a permit for the installation of overhanging sign for Kim's Cut Salon located at 9 Eagle Street. Without objection, file the communication and move to the order. So we're at paper number 11,686, an order granting permission to install an overhanging sign to Kim's Cuts Salon located at 9 Eagle Street. We need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Hopkins
Second?
and Buddington. Discussion. Counselor Wilkinson.
There's been a question, I guess, I'm just curious, is all the paperwork here in order?
I do not believe so. I think at this time, the owner of the building has not signed off.
But is that not a requirement?
You know, that's probably the one part of our job here is to make sure everything is signed off, so.
And I
Doesn't
would-
mean we
I would
cannot
like to
approve,
move
we
to
can't approve it,
postpone.
but.
I'd like to move to postpone.
Okay.
Second.
Currently, we have a motion to adopt, so
Sorry about
we
that.
would need that rescinded.
So rescinded.
What's that, Susan?
I'll rescind my
Okay,
motion.
and do we need both rescinded? No, anyway.
I'll rescind it if I need to.
All
but I
right,
don't
so
think
we have a motion to postpone. Second, was there a second to that now? Counselor LaForest. Any other discussion on this? Yes, Counselor Cohen and then Counselor Harpen.
Only because I'm thinking about trees and the environment. Is there a reason why we're getting doubles of things and we're getting the insurance again and we're getting another copy of what it looks like? And I feel as though there's a lot of redundancies, which causes confusion on my end. It seems like a waste of paper. And now I'm feeling like I just have a lot of things that I need to go through, and as Counselor Wilkinson had said, I feel very unprepared. So I think that we need to start thinking about those things, especially for us rookies, as to how we approach these meetings, because I would hate to make a decision based on me just flustered. So I'm actually glad that motion was made, because I feel very unprepared.
I guess the best answer I can give you at this time is that while an overhanging sign seems like something very simple, the process is complex of what is needed for that. And it is our job, part of it is the checks and balances to make sure that everything has been signed off, that everything has been approved the way it should be. So if we didn't have a copy of the insurance in front of us, we could not know that the insurance was approved. So it is a lot of paper, but it is also part of the process, our job of making sure to see that all that paper has been looked at, has been signed, and, can it be simplified? I think that's, from talking to Counselor Lamb, I think this is one of those things. I think it comes in front of us very few times, and every time it does, I feel like it just seems like it is far more complex than it should. So maybe someone down the road should be looking, general government or something, and revising that. But at the moment, it's in front of us because it's required.
Okay, so it's in front of us, again, just in case people didn't bring them previously, you're saying?
Well, because I believe it had to go to a second reading, is that, oh, no, because we didn't actually have the forms. Yes, Counselor Lamb, go
So
ahead.
there were some signatures that were missing from the copies we got in our packets, specifically. The
okay.
solicitor's office had to sign off on things, and they didn't have time to sign before we got our packets originally. So that's why there's a secondary copy.
Sorry, I didn't.
That makes sense, thank you.
That, I was thinking why these are in here, but yes,
Okay.
yeah. So you'll notice that the papers you have are, do we have to amend accepting the new papers?
Well, when each one comes up that needs to be amended, yes, you will have to.
Okay, but since this one's being
This one-
postponed,
This one, yeah.
Okay.
The mayor does have a couple amendments, so you'll have to
okay,
do
but
those.
we will have to amend accepting the new application because it has been signed. Not all of them have, so that's why we will have to go through them individually. Counselor Harpen?
Yeah, I'm just looking at this one for the Kim's Cuts.
Yeah.
And she did sign it as an applicant. but
The
she
landlord
didn't-
did not sign it.
I think it's the insurance form.
Oh, it's the insurance form?
No,
No.
the application, the applications are incomplete.
Right,
The application is incomplete.
yes.
Okay, because she signed as an applicant, but she didn't sign as an owner.
She's not the owner.
You gotta be owner of the building.
Okay, okay.
So in other words, we want to make sure that the owner of the building, these signs are going on, agree that the sign can be attached to their building.
Okay, she's not the owner of that
I can
building,
just
okay.
make a comment.
Yes, Counselor.
Obviously, the insurance will be in the owner's name, so the two
It has to
signatures
match up.
should match.
I got it. Yep.
All right, so we have a motion to postpone. Is it a roll call vote to do this? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So that one has been postponed. Did we need a date on that?
Next week, the
Next meeting, okay. All right, we'll try to get it back next meeting. All right, paper number 11,687, Mayor's Communication number 49, relative to approval of the permit for the installation of the overhanging sign for Mia's Exchange located at 11 Eagle Street. Without objection, we'll file the communication and move to the order, which is paper number 11,687, an order granting permission to install an overhanging sign to Maria Carmen, owner of Mia's Exchange, located at 11 Eagle Street. Motion to adopt is needed.
So moved.
LaForest, we need a second.
I'll second because it looks like there's a lot of signatures on this.
So I believe we have second, and we can go into discussion. I believe this is one that we have a new paper on that has been signed by the solicitor. So I think the new paper is complete, so,
Well,
yes, go ahead, Councilor
so as a
LaForest.
technicality, there is a blank here. I don't know if the owner needs to write in, I know this is a picayune issue, but does the owner need to write in her name under the second section, indicating she's the owner? So she has signed in two places, but there is a blank there. Is that correct?
She didn't put it in here, she signed it.
Yeah, I don't know if that one, I mean, she has signed it saying she's the owner, so it's just a case of she didn't print her name in there, and
Okay.
she is the owner, versus, but, that's up to you, if the counselor feels that that's incomplete. I don't think that's as incomplete as some of the others where there
Well, there's
are
something
no
wrong with
signatures.
almost all of these.
What's that?
There's something wrong with almost all of these applications, so I guess the question is whether we're voting on complete permit applications, or we're voting on mostly complete permit applications, or half-complete permit applications.
So I don't know if the counselor understand what's missing, what Counselor LaForest, but again, that is something that you can decide on, if it's an incomplete or acceptable or not acceptable. I think when a signature isn't there, then it's versus different than maybe filling in their name, but.
And I'm also wondering, was this signed by the solicitor prior to the business owner signing it?
The solicitor signed it on 7/20. The applicant signed it on the 21st, of May, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So that's also an issue. There's a
Counselor
2-month
Harpen,
delay.
yes.
On this one, it looks like she did write her name on the top. So in the top paragraph, she wrote her name out, her address, and the name of her business, and then she signed that as the applicant. And then the third paragraph down, she just signed her name. She didn't print her name again, but her name is printed on this form. So, I mean, to me, I can understand that that is her, and she signed it twice, wrote her name once.
She didn't put signs in there either. It's just incomplete.
Yeah, it's
That's why they're so
the third paragraph. There are 2 blanks in the third paragraph.
Here's a call on the counselors. Again, yes, Counselor Buddington.
I would support postponing it and working with a complete form to avoid confusion. I think with a legal issue, which this is almost purely a legal issue, it's worth being pedantic.
So sorry, Claire, what was that again?
I would prefer postponing this to the next meeting to
Okay.
complete the form.
Yes, Counselor Wilkinson.
I have to agree with Counselor Buddington. I mean, it's a matter of, we have a number of different applications here. So we let one squeeze by for something, and then one of the others could say, gee, that was favoritism. You let something go by for that one, but geez, you're going to catch me on something stupid and simple here. So I think we have to have something that's equal across the board for everything. So if you don't have a 100% application, I'm sorry to hold this up because it's a wonderful, absolutely wonderful project, without a doubt. And I'm sure Counselor Lamb is getting a little frustrated that it's taken so long to get all this done, but it has to be done the right way, and we have to have favoritism for nobody.
Okay. So currently, there is a motion. We would, if there's, this is to be, I don't know who made that motion.
Did I motion or second?
you
Then I rescind the motion.
Okay. So we need a new motion.
Motion to postpone.
Second.
We have a motion and to postpone, and a second. Any other discussion?
I would just ask a clarifying question. So is the expectation for this that the building owner sign it, or that an entirely new permit application be generated? I want to understand what the will of the council is to.
So what is currently missing on that one is a printed name in
printed
the
name.
blank space. So I
There's
guess
a
what,
second blank in that third paragraph also.
yeah. So is it, I guess the question is, should they be doing a new form altogether or just fill in the blanks? Is that the question, correct?
I want to understand what the council's looking for, so then when it comes back, it can be approved.
A completed permit, but I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to tell you to fill in the blanks on something.
Counselor Wilkinson.
I see I'm not an attorney either, certainly, but I see no problem with somebody filling in the blanks, initialing it, and dating it. And I believe in a court of law that might be acceptable. I've signed a couple legal documents.
Seems
and the like,
reasonable.
so. But I'm not an attorney.
Other counselors?
I'm
Counselor
fine,
Hopkins.
I'm fine with what was just suggested.
Okay.
Fill in the blank, initial it, date it.
You got that, Mayor?
I got it.
Okay. Any discussion from the audience? Not hearing any. This is all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Another postponement. All right, so look at them good now, as we want to be consistent, so. Paper number 11,688, Mayor's Communication number 50, relative to the approval of the permit of the installation of overhanging sign for Jack's Hot Dog Stand located at 12 Eagle Street. Without objection, file the communication and move to the order. Paper number 11,688, an order granting permission to Jeffrey Levanis, owner of Jack's Hot Dog Stand located at 12 Eagle Street. We need a motion to adopt the order.
Move
So
to
moved.
adopt.
Second.
Who did the motion? Just in case we got to rescind. Discussion. Do we have discussion on this one? Yes, Councilor LaForest.
This permit application is complete.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Any other discussion? Applause. Yeah. Anyone from the audience? All right, this is a roll call vote.
Buddington,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Harpen,
Yes.
Hopkins,
Yes.
LaForest,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Moran,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Bona.
Yes.
And 9 yeas, motion.
I guess my only question is if you've eaten Jack's hot dogs, can we vote on it? We would never have a quorum, would we?
I think everybody's been
That's
there.
all right. Paper number 11,689, Mayor's Communication number 51, relative to the approval of the permit for the installation of an overhanging sign for Clipper Kings located at 12 Eagle Street. Without objection, file the communication and
Point
move
of
on.
information, please.
Yes.
If we object at this point, can we avoid 5 minutes of discussion about the incomplete permit?
No, I would still probably have to, well, without objection, well, the objection is allowing me to move forward, so, sorry.
I was going to say he could motion to postpone immediately rather than doing a motion and then
Oh.
rescinding.
Okay.
That's what he's asking.
Okay.
All right.
But if I could just clarify, we're talking about the communication now, and the order would still come up in a minute anyway.
Yeah.
Hence the point of
Yeah,
information.
yeah.
Okay.
So the communication's moving forward. Do you want to do it on the next one? The next one, yeah, or there's a few things with that one, so. All right, paper number 11,689, an order granting permission to install an overhanging sign for Christopher Barton, owner of Clipper Kings located at 12 Eagle Street.
Move to postpone.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to postpone and a second. And, Mayor, there's a number of things on that form that are missing. Okay?
Here's a point of clarification. Can I withdraw it at the communication point to spare everybody?
No, it's not on the agenda.
Nice try.
Man, I said no.
All right. Paper number 11,690, Mayor's Communicate, did I vote on that? Did we? I don't.
No.
No, I did not vote on that, so. All right, so we have a motion to postpone and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion to postpone passes. Paper number 11,690, Mayor's Communication number 52, relative to the approval of a permit for the installation of the overhanging sign for Adams Community Bank located at 31 Eagle Street. Without objection, I'll file the communication and move on to the order. Paper number 11,690, an order granting permission to install an overhanging sign to Charles O'Brien, owner, Adams Community Bank located at 31 Eagle Street. A motion to adopt the order.
Motion to
Motion to
adopt.
deny.
So, I don't know who came first. We have a motion to postpone.
Motion to deny.
Do we have a second?
This is a fraudulent application.
We need a second.
A second for discussion.
Okay, all right, we have a second and discussion.
Well, if you don't mind.
Yep.
The paper signed by Charles O'Brien as owner of the Adams Community Bank. I don't believe he's the owner, I believe he's the president. But he still signed it anyways. We also have an application for a sign or awning permit by an Amy Giroux from Adams Community Bank. I don't know, actually I do know who she is, but we don't know if she's vice president, we don't know if she's the teller, we don't know if she's the janitor. But it's signed by her. So, I mean, these people are signing legal documents. If I was getting a mortgage at their bank and sat down in a closing room in order to get a mortgage, you better believe they'd want to make sure that I wasn't signing something that was fraudulent. Obviously, they don't think this is a big deal. They don't think that sending an application to the city of North Adams means a whole lot. We just want to get a sign. So we'll have whoever we want sign it. We'll say Charlie O'Brien, Charles O'Brien, is the owner of the property, which is fraudulent because he signed it as owner. And I moved it, I might reconsider postponing so they can do a proper application, but it's a travesty to this council for these people to present this. So unless somebody can.
Oh, go ahead.
No, unless somebody convinces me to withdraw, which I will, and they postpone and do the job right, this is a farce. And to boot, the rendering, we don't get a color one. The rendering we get is of historic Eagle Street. It doesn't even say Adams Community Bank. So obviously they didn't really have a rendering, so they decided to throw this in. It's an insult on how they're treating us.
Councilor Lamb.
So I can clarify at least on the image. Adams Community Bank already has an overhanging sign that says Adams Community Bank. So they are having a historic Eagle Street sign they were submitted in color, but I know printing, we can't get in color. So that is the actual sign that
Okay.
they'll be receiving.
Okay.
I can't speak to the other pieces. I don't know who owns a bank, if it is a president, if it's a board, or.
Board of
how that-
Trustees,
how
he's
that
the
plays.
president. But, what was happening here is they threw a form in front of him. He filled it in the best he could.
Okay.
And signed it. But he signed it legally as the owner of a bank, which is fraudulent.
Counselor Buddington, oh, well, we got a whole bunch. Okay,
So if you want me to withdraw so we can postpone, I don't want to drag this out all night. It just pisses me off.
all right.
Pardon me.
We'll go Counselor Buddington, and I'll go to this side, yes.
I can be quick, just because I think the question is who's the owner of the property rather than the bank. And if the owner is a corporation, I'm not a lawyer and don't know who the appropriate signature would be.
Thank you. Counselor Hopkins.
I'm going to vote against the motion to deny in favor of giving them a chance to look at this again and make sure it's right. I imagine Charlie O'Brien signs all manner of things on behalf of the bank, though.
I move to withdraw.
Okay. So we currently have no motion on the floor. We need a new motion.
Move to
Just ask
postpone.
Motion to
one question.
postpone.
Second.
In a second. Okay, back to discussion.
Just a question.
Okay.
Is this a form that is provided by the city, a general form for any business? Because
Yes.
I'm wondering if there's other businesses and corporations that fill out the same thing. So this might not be the first time that we've seen this, and it might not be the last.
Could be. The form is
Maybe we
very
need to
restrictive, because all you're doing is filling in a name as owner. It doesn't give you the option to fill in as a representative.
So it should have maybe signature and title or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe the
I think
form
the
needs to
flaw is in the form, but
Okay.
again, I felt insulted that, oh, it's not a big deal, I'll just sign this and get my sign.
Again, this may be something that all needs to be looked at, but we got these in front of us now. Counselor LaForest.
Just while we're on the point of seeking legal clarification on these matters, I just want to be sure also, through the chair, I assume it's okay, but again, there's a 60-day delay on each of these from the applicant signing to the solicitor signing. I just want to make sure that that's acceptable and that there's an issue there.
Yes, Counselor
So
Lamb.
through the chair, this is actually part of the project itself. So there's 14, I think, signs that are coming before council or have come before council already. And the goal was to have them come in 2 batches. And so that first batch came a little while ago. And so they're coming in lumps. They're not coming, and the problem was getting them completed. So before they went to the city.
So I just want to say, I personally don't have an issue with the 60 days. I just want to make sure there's no legal concerns with the delay between the applicant signing and the city and then the solicitor signing. That's my only concern.
The solicitor had no issue with that.
Okay, that's fine.
I guess one question I have is, I believe that when the city solicitor, or the solicitor has signed off, and he, so the question is, was who signed as owner even questioned? But the solicitor did sign that off, but I guess,
Bad for the solicitor.
yeah, so.
Negative check mark.
Yep. All right, we have a motion to postpone. Anyone from the audience want to speak on this? Yes, we'll start in the back and move forward.
Robert Cardamino, 173 East Quincy. My question is, do these businesses have to go through the same process for a freestanding sign they put on the sidewalks?
No. No.
Okay, thank you.
Sandwich boards, I believe, are usually accepted through the planning board, not through the city council. So it has to do with insurance and overhanging city property. Yes, you're up. Mr. Smith.
The only thing I just wanted to add was
Just got to do the name and address every time.
Joseph Smith, 131 Horgan Road, Clarksburg. I also own a home in North Adams. I just wanted to point out one thing is that I don't think Adams Community is really looking to get a sign. I think they're more looking to help participate in a positive way in the redevelopment of Eagle Street. And I think we want to be a little bit careful about making things too difficult where we don't need to. I just think that if the city solicitor signed off on it and these people from Adams Community Bank are trying to basically do the city a favor, do the town a favor. They're a larger entity, and if we make it so that it's a little bit too difficult, then we're going to find ourselves not having as many signs. If we don't have as many signs, it doesn't look as quaint. If it doesn't look as quaint, we're not going to eventually, have what we're probably looking to have there, which is more foot traffic. So, I like rules. Everyone on this council knows I like rules, but I think, if the city solicitor signed off, we want to be a little bit careful about being a little too harsh. Thank you.
Thank you. City solicitor has signed off on, I think, all but one of these, and I think because we have so many coming through all at once, I think we're just being careful here to keep them all consistent. And if you allow one, and you say the owner didn't sign it or didn't print the name, and then another one, it's not the right owner, and you allow one and not the other, then I think that's how this discussion started, is we're just trying to be consistent here. This is, yes, Councilor Lamb.
So just to your points, and I'm trying not to speak too much on these just because I've been so heavily involved in the project, but at face value, this is a completed application. They have submitted all the materials necessary in order to do this. So I'm just curious as to why, what is the response that's going to go to Adams Community Bank that we're not accepting this as a fulfilled
I would say we're
application?
questioning the ownership.
Okay.
Because it is signed as owner, and legally, can he sign? I guess it's a question. It would be.
But can anyone sign it then? Because that's the problem. If we only accept an owner, and we're not accepting the president and CEO of a corporation, then we're essentially saying, well, no one can sign for this, so you can't.
And I think I would agree with Councilor Wilkinson that it's usually the Board of Trustees when it comes to properties, but again, I'm not a lawyer either. I don't know. The question is there, and we can approve it, I mean, we do have the right to approve it. Right now, it's a postponement. Councilor Harpen?
Yeah, I mean, I'm having a hard time saying that, to send this back to the bank. First of all, this isn't going, the sign isn't even for the bank. The sign is, they're giving their sign to Eagle Street, is by the sounds of it, right? I mean, so it's going to say, their sign that we are giving to them free is going to say Historic Eagle Street. So they're signing off on this application that came from North Adams. This is an application from North Adams that North Adams provided them. And they signed it to the best of their ability by the people that really need to sign it. I believe, Amy's, I know Amy and Charles O'Brien, if he's the president, then, he is the able person to sign it. And our city solicitor signed it on July 10th, and he signed it on May 18th. So the city solicitor believed that this was okay.
Councilor LaForest and Councilor Wilkinson.
So regardless of the intent, we have a legal document before the council that we are asked to vote on. And so whether it's the city budget or a permit application for a sign, I think it deserves the same respectful dialogue, and I think the council has an obligation to look at each of its documents and to debate them and to vote on them for what they are. I agree with Councilor Wilkinson that this document, even if Amy Giroux and Charles O'Brien are the correct signatories for this document, the document doesn't indicate that they are. And specifically, it underlines owner, not signatory. So I'm sorry, it's a legal document, and the wording is incorrect, and I don't think it's unreasonable for us to ask the bank to clarify. Their intentions are good. I don't think either Amy or Mr. O'Brien, intend any malfeasance by signing this document. But if there were an incident that had to be that had to go before their insurance company, I think the insurance company, more so than the council or the city solicitor, would have an issue with whether or not these applications are correct. The insured, is indicated as Adams Community Bank, and I think the permit application should reflect that Mr. O'Brien and Ms. Giroux are the correct signatories for the, for the permit.
Councilor Wilkinson.
Just through the chair to Councilor Harpen, what's Amy Giroux's title at the bank?
I don't know her specific title. I believe she's a vice president of something, yes.
You believe she's vice
So-
president? She could be a teller?
But, that's not, I said the city solicitor signed this on July 10th.
Well, that's a
She
mistake.
signed it
That's a
on May
mistake.
17th,
Excuse
and
me,
he was able to
I believe I had the
conclude
floor.
from this document
when I
that it
asked
was
the
okay to
question,
sign. So that's my
Right.
conclusion.
Well, there's obviously a mistake by the city solicitor here, because I have to agree, this is not a legal document. And I don't see where it's a big deal to send it back to the bank and ask them to fill it out properly. It's not a big deal. As to, you mentioned that they weren't really asking for a sign. Well, yeah, they are. They're asking to put it on their building, which they're going to be legally responsible for. So whether it says Adams Community Bank or not is immaterial. The fact is they are asking for a sign on their building.
Councilor LaForest.
Sorry, I know this has gone on and on. I just want to point out that on the subsequent applications on which we'll be voting in hopefully just a minute, the applicant indicates that they're a trustee of the organization for which they're signing. And again, my contention is there's no indication that these two individuals are the correct signatories for the permit application.
Councilor Lamb.
We need a new form,
Yes.
period.
That's another motion. That's another.
I'm just
we'll
saying,
agree
I'm
on
saying,
that.
like,
We'll agree
to
on that.
Councilor Forrest's point, yes, the next applicant may have put that they're a trustee. However, there is nowhere on this form does it indicate that that should be included.
That's true.
I think we're all in agreement on that.
Sorry, you already spoke once on this. Keeping it consistent. Other counts, yeah, you only can speak once.
No, I'm fighting.
Oh, no, not you.
I know.
Oh, okay. Any other counselors? Yes, Counselor Harpen.
I'm just going to say, it could go either way. If you want to send it back, you can send it back, but it's my opinion. We have a solicitor for a reason. The solicitor looks at the documents, he signs them, he verifies them, and he is the person that is ultimately responsible to verify that the information on this form is correct. We make sure that it's all signed and everything, but he has the knowledge, he has the expertise, he has the education to look at this form and say that it's properly filled out and sign off on it.
Counselor Wilkinson.
Yes. Try not to believe it. I have to agree with you, but obviously he made a mistake. But the bottom line here is, I think, as Councilor Bona mentioned, is we're trying to be consistent with each one of these applications. So we postponed 3 of them on technicalities. And now what you're suggesting is that, because it's a bank, that we let this one go through. Well, that sends a wrong message. If we're going to be consistent with all of them, we're going to postpone 3 of them for technicalities, there's no reason not to postpone this one also. It's not a big deal. They could fill it out.
So the motion is to postpone. I'm going to make this a roll call vote, even though we didn't on the others, because I think it might be split. And
Mr. President, may I offer
Yes,
just
go ahead.
one point of clarification, just for this? What the solicitor is signing off on is the approval of the bond, not the permit, not the completion of the application. The solicitor is signing off that there is a certificate of liability insurance that states that the city, that the applicant has insurance, and it was the recommendation during the last batch of these that the insurance forms indicate that the city is an additional insured. So the role of the solicitor is to certify the insurance, not to certify the application itself. So I just want to make that point of clarification and add that the solicitor finds that even that level of certification on a form that is needing updating fairly bizarre.
Does this require 5 or 6 votes to pass?
This would need majority?
Just the majority.
Just majority. This is to postpone. So if it fails, we would need to come back with another motion. Okay?
And I'm prepared to do that.
Okay.
Sort of kidding.
Roll call, please.
Buddington,
No.
Yes.
Harpen,
No.
Hopkins,
Yes.
LaForest,
Yes.
Lamb,
No.
Moran,
No.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Bona.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries.
So-
It's a postponement. So if this does go to the bank, back to the bank, maybe we just clarify and needs a title next to the name. That's all. Paper, and who said these were going to be boring tonight?
You jinxed it.
It was you. Yes, it was you. Paper number 11,691, Mayor's Communication number 53, relative to the approval of the permit for an overhanging sign for Birdsong Gallery located at 36 Eagle Street. This is one that the mayor is going to need to amend your address.
Yes. And that amendment is subsequent to submitting the papers. We had some clarification with the insurance certificate. The address for this business is 40 Eagle Street.
Okay. Without objection, I will follow the communication and move to the order. Paper number 11,691, an order granting permission to install an overhanging sign to Flatiron Condominium Trust for Birdsong Gallery located at the 40, well, do I still keep it 36? 36 Eagle Street. We have a motion to adopt. We need a motion to adopt.
Oh, so moved.
And a second. We're not getting a second?
Second.
Okay, second.
And I'd further like to move that we amend the address to 40 Eagle Street.
Okay, yes, so we now have an amendment to the location, change the location to 40 Eagle Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion on the amendment? Counselor Buddington, this is only on the amending the address change.
Yes, I hope this doesn't become a long thing again. But the copy I have just says located at the Flatiron Building and doesn't
Yeah, that's what
give
I
the
have.
address at all. What am I missing?
I've made-
It was on a different copy.
It was based on his communication.
Oh. Okay, I'm good.
Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. That was on the amended one. Let's say, so this is all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Oppose? Amendment passes. So now we need a motion to adopt as amended.
Motion to adopt is amended.
Second.
And any discussion? No? Yes, Councilor LaForest.
I really hate to open my mouth, but I just want to be clear on the permit application. There's no address. It only says the Flatiron Building. No, there's no address. It just says the Flatiron Building on the application. So the only actual indication of address is on the mock-up and on the mayor's communication.
Move to postpone?
Well, we have a motion to adopt as amended.
No. Consistency is important.
Who made the motion for that?
Counselor Cohen.
Counselor Cohen, it's up to you. Pressure. Is there any other discussion? Counselor's opinions on this?
I will rescind my motion for
Okay.
consistency purposes.
Okay. Do we have a new motion?
Move to postpone.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to postpone. Any other discussion? This is, this is all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Nay.
Counselor Lamb. Paper number 11,692, Mayor's Communication number 54, relative to the approval of a permit for the installation of overhanging sign for Galen Gallery located at 44 Eagle Street. Mayor needs to amend this address also.
48.
48. Without objection, file the communication and move into the order. Paper number 11,692, an order granting permission to install an overhanging sign to Flatiron Trust Galen Gallery located at 44 Eagle Street. Motion to adopt.
Motion to postpone?
Motion to postpone.
Second.
Second, discussion.
Again, on,
Well, right now, if it just gets postponed, it doesn't have to get amended. Yes, go ahead.
sorry, similarly, again, on the application, there's no indication of the street address.
Okay. Any other discussion? Any discussion from audience? Yes, go ahead. Name and address for the record, please.
Henry Yeski, 62 Chase Avenue. I just want to mention that if you're going to fill out an application, make sure they do it the right way. Because if you don't, it has to return. And it takes a long time to do it. If it wasn't for that, I'd say something different. But that's
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, Counselor
Just for
Cohen.
point of clarification, when we're motioning to postpone, does that mean that the amendments would be added to that the next time it comes back, so that we don't have to do that again?
It should be, yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose?
Nay.
Oppose, opposition. I think that's it. Sorry, Counselor Lamb.
Is what it is.
What's that?
Is what it is.
Yeah. All right, paper number 11,693, communication from Traffic Commission creating a no parking zone on the westerly side of Ashland Street. Without objection, we'll file the communication and move to the ordinance. Paper number 11,693, an ordinance amending Chapter 13 of the revised ordinance of the City of North Adams entitled Stopping, Standing, and Parking Generally, Section 13-50 entitled Parking Time Limited on Designated Streets, Ashland Street. We need a motion to pass to a second reading and publish required by law.
Motion.
Cohen
Second.
and Harpen. We need some discussion now. Any discussion? No discussion on this? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I can just say I drove by there, and it looks like in that area, there's maybe 3 houses. And I think they all have driveways that go in the back, so I don't think it's gonna affect anybody in that neighborhood. So,
Mayor, can you remind me, when something like this affects a street, like right in front of houses, are they notified at all?
I'd have to ask that of the Traffic Commission.
I'm trying to remember if they are. Counselor Wilkinson?
I'm just, if there's going to be a meeting of the Traffic Commission, wouldn't they automatically notify the butters in a certain
That's what I
area?
mean, right. Counselor Buddington?
As the representative on the Traffic Commission, at our last meeting, this issue was before my time on it, but there were 2 issues that were put off specifically because abutters had not been notified. So I'm not convinced that it has been standard practice to notify abutters.
Any other discussion? Counselor Wilkinson?
Sorry, but getting consistency, if there's a question as to whether the abutters were notified, I hate to do this, wouldn't it be better to postpone and find out if they were before we pass this?
Well, I don't know if we would have information in front of us if the abutters normally are. You said I think they have been, but in the past, I recall getting notices of something parking on my street, but.
My impression from our last meeting is that they are not notified as a matter of course. So not necessarily, I think.
So I guess then my only concern would be you wake up one morning and you have no parking in front of your house and you weren't aware of it. So. Any other discussion? Counselor Hopkins.
Are they required to be notified? I don't know that they are.
Right. Counselor Wilkinson.
But in all good conscience, shouldn't they be?
I'm talking about the requirement.
Counselor Harpen.
You know, this letter here comes from Mary Ann King, so she's the chairwoman of the Traffic Commission. I think she's been on that Traffic Commission for quite some time.
Longer than a lot of people bet on it.
Right. So, I mean, I'm sure I know her to be very thorough, and, you know, if there was notification to be had, I'm sure it was done.
Yeah.
So I'm confident in her letter and recommendation.
The plus to these ordinances is that if we ever have to change them again, we can change them back if need be. So, any others? Any discussion from the public? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? No opposition. Motion carries. Committee reports or minutes? Not hearing any. Community events, calendars. Any events? That's for the public also, if there's any events. Open forum. We got a bunch. We'll start in the front and work our way backwards. Mr. Smith.
Robert Smith, 140 Pleasant Street. I just want to point out that what Joseph Smith pointed out before in reference to not making things too difficult. After all, this whole project was to dress up Eagle Street to attract people who come into our city. So we got to be careful with that. The other thing we got to be careful with is none of you are lawyers, so you really can't be talking about what is legal and what isn't legal. And we got to be careful with our language claiming documents are fraudulent. That's not the way we should be doing business. Thank you.
Mr. Sapienza.
Yes, Brian Sapienza, 113 Pleasant Street. First of all, I want to thank Mayor Bernard for the appointment to the Public Arts Commission and the council for approving the appointment. I hope to be able to serve the city to the best of my abilities in the position. And also, secondly, I've heard from a number of people that live on the West End, and I know that the council cannot do really anything about this, but we'd like to see an encouragement for somebody to develop a convenience store, gas station for the west end of North Adams, specifically the State Road area. With the loss of Price Chopper, the loss of the Getty Station, and the loss of the Gibbs Station, residents in that area are forced to either have to drive all the way into Williamstown to purchase their gasoline or come all the way into the city of North Adams to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Urban. We're going to go front to back.
Roger Urban, Ashland Street, North Adams, short and sweet. My group, the Hillside Restoration Group, has wanted me and asked me and begged me to inform you that we have completed the restoration of 1,027 stones.
Wow. Thank you. Mr. Smith.
I'm not going to be as short and sweet. Hopefully I'll get in my 2 minutes, though. On June 22nd, an artist named William Oberist sent an email to the mayor, and unfortunately, at this point, he has not had yet a courtesy of a reply. This is the artist, one of the two artists who worked with our local school children on the Pillar Art on Marshall Street. I'm going to read part of his email so that you and the public have the benefit of hearing it. Since our last communication, I've received consistently negative feedback and conversations with people around town, including many in the art community, about painting over Ala Awad's mural. It was pointed out to me that the mural shows no wear. In fact, it is in a near pristine condition. People also tell me that because they missed the pillar art, any solution that leaves the pillar art completely covered over isn't really a compromise. Another opinion, and this one really strikes home, I must admit, is that Christina and I would be hypocrites to paint over someone else's art in response to having our own work painted over. And certainly the most frequent opinion I hear is that an injustice was committed against the local community, school children, teachers, parents, residents in general, by a, quote, powerful, politically connected, and arrogant institution, end quote. It doesn't seem to matter that the museum was there first. People question how MoCA can presume to control a public area like that, obliterating a 2-year project the mayor and city council had supported and even bestowed a neighborly award to. During a track conference I attended last month in the Netherlands. North Adams controversy came up in conversation and listed great interest. It seems that politics, the quote-unquote big corporation or quote-unquote art police acting in disregard of the citizens in the community is a storyline many find hard to resist. And that's the end of the quote from the email. I'd also like to point out that today the mayor met with a former city council member to discuss this matter. That individual shared with me that after the meeting, he felt that the mayor mumbled through some of his answers and gave contradictory answers. I would again ask that as public servants, the city authorize restoration as the public has requested. And I would also echo something that Mr. Wilkinson said earlier, Councilor Wilkinson said, favoritism for no one. And so far we've been showing favoritism for an institution that, while I adore that institution, and that institution has done much for the city, it still should not be allowed to do something or control something that it shouldn't. And then on a separate matter,
Your 2 minutes are up.
can I just get in the last few seconds? On a separate matter, the city is not addressing the question of the Unicom that the city has seemingly lost at the airport that WAMC reported on. It appears that the city does not want to complicate negotiating a lease with a felon at the airport it is currently working with. I'd ask that there be transparency on where the supposedly city-owned equipment is. Thank you.
Mr. Cardamino.
Robert Cardamino, 173 Quincy Street. I'd like to thank the council for the decision on the plastic bags. And if the mayor or this council decides to pursue recycling, you will have my complete support. Okay? And thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else for open forum? We will move on to mayor's concerns.
Thank you. 3 brief items. First, I want to acknowledge the 20th annual Eagle Street Beach Party held on Saturday, July 14th. It was a great turnout. I want to thank Eric Rudd for the vision that he's sustained over the past 20 years supporting the party. And I want to thank a few people in the city staff, beginning with Susie Helm from the Office of Tourism, who kind of runs point on the event for the city, to the North Adams Police Department for facilitating the street closure, and for the staff in public services that both installs or lays down and then removes with almost nary a sign the sand that was installed there. The Windsor Lake Concert Series continues Wednesdays at 6:30. This week it is Bang on a Can. Next week it is the Eagles Community Band. And then this Thursday is a typically busy summer evening in North Adams. Weather permitting, there's a Down Street Art Thursday with a movie at Colgrove Park. There's the downtown bike around again, weather permitting, and there is a party in the park at Knoll Field featuring the Hotshot Hillbillies.
Thank you. Liaison updates, councilors' concerns. Councilor Harpen.
I just have 2 questions through the chair to the mayor, please. The first one is I'd like to know what the status of the cable lawsuit is. And secondly, this week it seems like I have been bombarded with traffic concerns. And the main area that the concerns are falling are Phillips Ave and the 4-way stop sign there. And the traffic being very heavy, and it's by a school, and there's also some disabled children there as well. So in talking to Director Casalio, he was going to put a speed monitoring device there, and I was just wondering if you knew when that would be happening.
I'll find out from the director and get back to you on that. I know he was planning to do it, but I haven't heard confirmation. And I should be seeing something from the cable attorney this week. I was in communication with him yesterday.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Any other councilors? Councilor Wilkinson and Councilor Byington.
I have mixed feelings about the plastic bags. I'm one of those guilty parties that reuses them 2 or 3 times, though. When I drive down the street and I see one hanging in a tree, it really ticks me off. So I think there's a bigger culprit out there, and there's nothing the city of North Adams can do, but we certainly need to do something about it, and that's the single-use water bottle. I'm looking at 4 of them across the room from me. Pardon me?
This is reused.
Oh, that's reused.
I filled
okay.
this with
But
tap
no,
water.
if you look at the statistics and some of the scary videos out there where these things are ending up, especially the oceans, there's a problem here. And if I don't think we can do anything on the local level with water bottles, because that really needs to be done at the state level to put a deposit on them, because you can't it's going to be almost virtually impossible to do away with them, or else Coke and Pepsi will be all over you. But I'm glad that this body acknowledges that there is a problem, and hopefully the state will do something about it soon.
Counselor Buddington.
Just two quick computer-related issues. I believe two counselors we get our packets by email. Saves a little paper, and in my case, just helps my organization a whole lot. Just let the counselors know that this is an option. The clerk has been very helpful along those lines. Also, during the discussion of ownership of land, I tried to look it up on the Mass Land Records site, which is a state-run site of land records. And I just want to note that that site doesn't work well, and I wasn't able to find it.
Thank you. Any other counselors?
I'll teach you. Use it every day.
I guess this will be more of a concern, and if a counselor wants to take it up, or if a certain committee feels it belongs to them, but I think tonight was a grand lesson of something that needs to be revised and looked at, and it may be a case of dealing with our legal counsel on a new form for overhanging signs versus also new process, new law. It definitely is a cumbersome process of how many offices are involved in it and the form itself. So I think we should look at how to really streamline that down. And that moves us on to licenses, which I don't think we have any. Correspondence, there was one everyone should have received. And a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose. Meeting adjourned.